Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the show. Today we're talking the defense production and the EU wall on the Council of Foreign Conflict, episode 389. My name is Scott, the proprietor of the Future Conflict channel. Today I got I got my guys with me. Welcome, gentlemen, and welcome to the chat. A lot of long-time faces in the chat. Good to see you. It's oh my gosh, is that Pinochet's helicopter tour on YouTube? I find that shocking. Nice to see people using both YouTube and Rumble. Appreciate you guys. Joe, how you doing today, brother?
You know what? I'm good. It's been a long weekend. For those who want updates on Cammy the kitten, we did post a new photo, and I also wrote under it, we're accepting offers. If y'all want this cat, let me know.
That darn cat. Remember that movie?
Because my adventures in getting her back in the house yesterday involved a ladder and two of the neighbors' dogs to help me herd this monstrous cat. So,
wife, if you're watching, if you're watching, no. All right, do you understand me? No.
Anyway, it's been a wild weekend, but we had fun. A lot going on. All the planning for Montana and all that good stuff. Getting out to do the event and do the classes out there and doing some writing. Some serious work was done on Tactical Wisdom 6. I was in danger of Sibleyeitis, but I just shook off the cobwebs and got to it. So
now, what is the title of this one, of the next one?
I'm not telling anyone, because that leads to 6 months of everyone telling me what I should write and me asking them to send me a copy of their book so I can, do it the way they want.
But fair enough.
It shall be referred to Tactical Wisdom 6, the Green Weenie, until the actual title's released.
Well, that's true. That's true.
I want to call it Tactical Wisdom Sex. Because
man, Tactical Wisdom Sex, the Green Weenie. I'm digging it. That's it. That's what's happening.
And that's SECH. If you're, for any of you with your mind in the gutter,
you dirty people.
You dirty. Yeah. Let's see. Here we go.
George has it over there. Tactical Wisdom 7, cat recovery operations. Man, you are not lying. You have not lived until you're standing at the very top of a ladder, the rung you're not supposed to step on, and you're reaching for a cat dangling from the roof. It's really a lot of fun.
You're like, do not let go of the ladder.
It was just me. There was no one else around. So.
Oh, that's even better. Even better. All right. Well, we pray for you daily, Joe, and it looks like our prayers came through today. So,
and I want to say something to Rick, since he's already started. Rick, if you come to Montana, I will bayonet you.
Yeah, well, that's probably wise.
You could be penetrated by Joe, is what he's saying.
Uh-oh.
Well, Donna's in a mood this morning.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Do we have more SCOTUS stuff this morning?
What's that?
Do we have more SCOTUS?
Well, I mean, there will be. Yeah, every week for the next little while they'll be issuing rulings.
I'm curious what we're going to see today. I don't know if there's any gouge on what's coming.
This is what I have said over the weekend, and some hams fell for my trap, but. Wait until the FCC learns that they don't have authority to do any of the things they do after Chevron. The entire system of amateur radio licensing is entirely rulemaking authority and not law. So, in my opinion, my expert opinion, as an anti-sad ham, that all just went away. So,
well, Watcher, what are you going about? What are you going on about in the chat?
It's something that we probably shouldn't show. I have a bad feeling if we show it, but I am free to talk about it. This morning, someone has released a revolution in 3D printed.
Yeah, I'm watching this video that we will not show.
My
How do we
actual
want to put this?
understanding of the NFA is that would be a violation as opposed to
Well,
making a firearm. That would be a violation.
This is essentially the construction of a homemade muffler for your boomstick.
There you have it.
No one believes
And,
that or the solvent trap idea
basically,
either. So.
basically, I will say the following. I think we can freely get away with the following without getting in trouble. Someone has figured out that using modern home advanced production techniques, along with let's just say some medical metamaterials that are readily available at every single store in America.
And it looks like some epoxy here.
No. That's part of the genius. Is that's literally part of the cast kit.
Oh, interesting.
So,
well, I'm curious to see how long that lasts. Before somebody gets yeeted into oblivion over it. I'll be honest with you. There is no kind of benefit to me for doing something illicit like that. I mean,
no. I bring it up purely as a that's interesting.
Well, yeah, that's interesting.
If you're gonna do it quietly.
Yeah, exactly right. Don't broadcast it to the internet.
Yes. Anyway, so let's move on. Sean, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well and good. And in Montana news, I actually will not be able to come due to scheduling and what have you. I would have to fly in Friday morning and fly out Sunday morning, and there is no way I can afford that and do everything else. That said, it would be a great day for everybody to stop simping for Milky's McCommunist. And I will leave that at
that. I'm putting a poll in the chat. Is Sean's audio too terrible? And
ironically,
I'll give you 5 minutes, Sean. If they let you hold on a second, if they let you stay, then that means the chat has decided to put up with your audio. But if they don't, we need to reattack your audio solution.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what's going on.
I know it's really weird. Normally, your audio is usually on point. So,
well, ironically, to Durna's point of a high power being made out of Sudafed, a Sudafed is more regulated than a Browning high power. So.
Ironically enough, yeah. Let's see. Pinochet is going to be over on YouTube, so he's going to Pinochet Helicopter Tour member chat. He's been a member for 6 months. Come on, Pinochet. I thought you've been a member longer than that. I guess he made it lapsed 1 month or something. Not a Rubicon is going to have a field day when the FCC, now that the Chevron is told to tinkle up a rope. You should see my homemade decorative claymores. Hey, so here's the irony, though. It's like all of these rules are still rules until somebody takes them to court over them. And
exactly right.
Strikes them down.
Here's the argument. One of and this is exactly the problem. The argument that one of the sad hams made to me and Not a Rubicon when we were discussing this on Twitter, guy said, well, Congress passed a law authorizing the FCC to regulate radio. I'm like, okay, but that's the whole part that's not legal, right? Just because so the agency exists under federal law, okay, but the power to regulate is what doesn't actually exist. That's not how it works. Congress is required to pass laws, so the FCC can't just declare that things are legal or illegal. That's the whole point of Chevron being overruled.
Right, and in many cases, what you'll find is they'll create laws. For instance, they'll take all the rules and somebody will draft some big, amendment and throw it in some sort of omnibus, and then it will get passed because it'll be one of these everybody votes for it deals, and it gets snuck in, But ideally, they're going to have to do that for everything. They're literally going to have to take federal regulation and turn it into law. And if we're able to get a decent turnout in Congress, assuming everything continues along the status quo ante, of course, that's the big assumption there, then theoretically that that conservative majority would be able to kind of keep a lot of that stuff from coming.
The point of requiring Congress to actually vote on laws is to get
and do their
people to
job.
put their name. Yeah,
Exactly
it's people
right.
to put their name on something, take a position. Letting nameless and faceless federal bureaucrats make law is not. That's not part of our founding fathers' intent.
Hey, as long as we're here, can we just give a quick F in the chat there for all those weirdo leftists who had their fucking brains broken by this?
Oh yeah, they were not happy. Well, here's what's
No.
funny is the left used to be all about freedom and get rid of the man. And now they're so angry that the man can't arbitrarily make rules for their life. I just don't get it.
Somebody please think of the experts?
Well, I mean,
all right. No falsettos from Watcher anymore, please.
Well, so like this isn't new for the left, by the way. They like freedom as long as it's the freedom that they dictate, and that's been true for the past century. So
yeah,
you know, when we're discussing whether or not you can, shoot the guy breaking in your front door, you have no freedom. You shouldn't have any freedom, and shut up and just die already. On the other hand, if there's gay sex to be had in the street, well, you're infringing on my freedoms if I can't do that.
Somebody
to be had in the street.
Somebody find that graphic. Somebody find that graphic right now. The things that will happen. The things that will happen if gay sex is legalized. Slippery slope argument thing. In which 100 out of 100 things have all happened within 5 years.
Right.
Right.
Washer's voice is purdy. What you talking about, Scott? Yeah. Right.
Well, I mean, tomato.
Sean didn't like our poll, apparently.
Well, yeah, evidently the chat is always correct. So I'm sorry about his luck. Don, you got to work on your man's audio there. Hey, speaking of which, Don, how you doing, brother? It's been, I always like it. Oh, wait, hold on a second, Don. I got something way more important. A $20 super chat from Well-Armed Corgi. The importance of the end of Chevron is demonstrated in the fact that they haven't cried this hard since the end of Roe. Right. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It has been, as much as we like to talk shit about this current Supreme Court, because there have been notable times when, conservative justices have gone off the reservation. With the exception of
literally the day before they sold us out on the Fourth Amendment. You don't have one anymore.
Well, with the exception of Thomas and Alito, all the other conservative justices have at one time or another lost their damn mind, right? But all that said, I mean, since the defeat of Roe, we have just been going from success to success on major rulings that have absolutely broken the brains of most of our liberal buddies out there on the street. So it's kind of hard. You're right, Watcher. There have been we've taken some shots to the nuts, but honestly, there has been more good than bad in recent years. I'm sorry, Don.
Oh, you're good, man. I propose we return to a 3-justice court. We'll keep Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch as the liberal judge. And then we can have Alito as a nice centrist. And I think we'll be good from there.
Hey, got our buddy Canon Hotep in the chat. If you are not a subscriber of Canon Hotep, make sure you head on over to both YouTube and Rumble to
you know what?
Sub.
I'm actually really sad that we didn't cover this before Sniper took off, because here's the deal. One of the other things that Chevron kills, and people haven't really got this yet, is that Western states like Utah are over 89% owned by the federal government by BLM, which has allowed itself to continuous new powers to be able to say, we'll take that, and we'll take that, and we'll take that, and we'll take that, and we'll take that. Utah has come out hard as soon as Chevron fell and said, hey, we're making a giant list of 1,001 laws that we're going to challenge so that we can get our fucking land back.
Yeah,
the other thing about the Bureau of Land Management is that they happen to change the rules right in the middle. Note the Bundy Ranch, right? Hey, you've been using this land for 20 years. All of a sudden, as of today, as of yesterday, you can't use it anymore.
Yeah,
And,
no new law passed.
So,
All they had to
Right.
do was reinterpret an existing law.
Oh, and
So-
by the way, the fees that you're paying to us, we're explicitly going to use those in efforts to put you out of business.
So before everybody gets very, very excited about what this is going to overturn, the last sentence of that ruling is this ruling does not inherently overturn past rulings. So that doesn't mean you can't. It just means that each one is going to be its own road to hoe to get them done. But it is good entryism to be able to get that done.
Yeah. All right. Watcher, how you doing?
Good, doing very well. Doing as well as can be expected. I do have to say before we move on to the super chat real quick that the one before the super chat, I have noticed a lot of very interesting Section 8 takes recently.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that.
And then, of course, Derna for $5 said, I'd say that the SCOTUS just makes trades. The feds don't have Chevron deference anymore, but they can use big tech to suppress speech with impunity. Yeah, I mean, and oddly enough, I think Chevron's going to have some impact on some of these regulatory powers against.
Yeah, that is the one
internet as
thing I
well.
will say is that, like, hey, yes, they said the president is fine to be able to come in and pressure these social media companies to say, basically giving the government the ability to try and say what is truth, which we explicitly should not allow in any context. But there's yeah. Anyway, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, I think I think we're going to be seeing the fallout of Chevron for a while. And I think that is all in all a good thing. If we get any more interesting, there is Sean.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, Sean, you're back.
I don't think that worked.
It sounds better, but you're gonna have to say more than 5 words in order to get it. By the way, it's gone down to only 56% of people. So clearly, the chat is coming over to your side.
I have no idea, but I don't know that worked. I tried 3 different devices. I can either make the audio really great, but then I can't hear anything, or I have this. I don't know what's going on.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's acceptable.
It's fine in the way that women say it's fine.
Yeah, well, that's
And you,
Joe.
and you wonder why you get called Sheldon.
Joe, you know the deal. I live in a house full of women. It's like you start adopting their lingo after a while. All right, squishy throwing the yeah. All right, so let's.
I think Scott just came out as trans.
Well, hey, no. I'm saying that I understand their lingo. I speak their lingo.
I don't know. Adopting is a very different word there, sir.
Well, it's up to you.
Yeah.
It's all about your interpretation.
I
All right,
guess
let's
real
jump
quick-
into this first.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Watcher. Did you?
No,
have
that was it. I was gonna say let's
right.
get.
I got it. Yeah. All right. So our first odds and ends today. I always think we already know there's a lot of illegals coming across the border. Now we're getting special illegals.
We set a record.
Number of
wait.
criminals caught entering the U.S. Illegally each month sets record, and this is from the CBP. This is an Epoch Times story. Of course, they are. These people are they're smoking dope, is what they're doing. The number of people with criminal convictions caught entering the United States illegally per month so far this fiscal year has risen to a record high. Data from Customs Border Protection show a total of 13,130 criminal illegal aliens. By the way, all illegal aliens are criminals. They are criminals by the very virtue that they did not come through a port of entry. If you come through a port of entry and present yourself as an asylum seeker, that is legal asylum, right? But if you come across anywhere else, you're entering illegally and you are a felon. If I'm correct, Joe, I think it's a felony.
No, it's a misdemeanor the first time, felony the second time, but
Correct.
it is still a criminal.
Yeah. Let's see. This is since October 1st. That's how many illegals. That's an average of 1,459 criminal illegal aliens per month, the highest monthly average of any year on record. And like going back to like so far, the year to date in 2024 is 13,130. That's just this year to date. In FY17, you had only 8,500 the entire year. And that actually went down, during 18. It went down again to like 4,000 something in 19. In FY20, it was down to 2,400. Wow, shocking.
Different? What was different?
It's almost like there was something
and
different.
19 and 20 versus 21 through 20.
And Joe, the trend was a downward trend all those years. And then in 21, it goes up to 10,000. Huh. That's crazy.
We had the best border. We had best security. We took care of everything.
Unbelievable.
When Donald Duck is doing a Trump impression.
Yeah. If the trend continues, this fiscal year, 2024 ends in September, record level of more than 17,000 criminals will have been caught crossing the border illegally. By comparison, fiscal year 2023 saw an average of 1,200 arrests per month for a total of 15,000. So that's an additional 2,000 criminal aliens coming across. It says that the illegal immigrants with criminal convictions arrested so far, the largest group was gang affiliations. Individuals like this pose significant threat. I mean, okay, so here's some of the list, right? Significant numbers have been convicted of more serious crimes such as assault, burglary, sexual offenses, and homicide. Crimes may not have occurred in the U.S. or abroad, so that's both. So it's not like you had, you could be a first-time person coming over. And then they go into some specifics, and all this kind of stuff. Guys, this doesn't surprise me. I mean, if you are Mr. I want to break the rules and I've been waiting to come across, now's your time, right? Because Joe, what do you reckon the number of, these are the ones that they've caught. What do you reckon the number that they didn't catch is? Probably much higher because criminals are motivated not to get caught.
As a general rule in criminal justice, the idea is that about 1 in 10 people gets caught for the crimes they commit. So extrapolate that number out and see how many criminal aliens are coming through that didn't get caught. So pretty crazy. And Shelley, they might think we live on stolen land, but conquered and stolen are not the same thing.
Right. Like nobody pulled an excavator in and took your land. All right.
We're somebody's ancestors not as good at warfare.
Just for the record, the Native Americans drove out indigenous populations themselves. So,
I was just getting ready to say that every Native American tribe, when we met them, were living on stolen land themselves.
Genocided.
Here's the biggest thing that people forget about that. And as a guy who's about to drive across a bunch of Indian reservations, I can't believe I want to say this on the internet, lest I get scalped. But the greatest ecological damage in the history of mankind was done when the Native Americans arrived in North and South America. They killed off thousands of species of animals and plants. And this is an acknowledged fact. This is not a theory. This is true. For all their talk about them being in tune with nature, they've done the most ecological damage in history. So,
Joe, I know you talk a lot of shit about that whole gray man thing, but you might want to start practicing some on this drive.
All he's got to do is make sure that he follows the beer truck, and he'll be fine.
Well, fun thing, and I love as long as we're here, I'm going to provide Joe some cover fire because one of my very favorite things about this whole debate is that when they find out new information, they like to shift like their entire way of thinking in order to try and preserve the original thought line. So, for instance, they found out a couple years ago that, hey, it turns out that there's a lot of archaeological evidence that the Native Americans just like set whole forests on fire in order to hunt animals, like regularly, as a means of separating them off into one area of the forest or another, to make it easier to kill them. Or down where I lived, they used to set up little fences made out of sinew and then drive all the rabbits into them and club them all to death, thousands at a time. It's I don't know, man. It's it's
you know what's
amazing.
funny is that every time I go to Montana, I take this route from Ron's house up through the reservation, and you leave the reservation right at Little Bighorn. Like literally, you can see Custer's grave from the gas station at the end of this route. And every time I go in there into this gas station / casino, that's the most depressing thing I've ever seen. You know, people begging for money on the way in and all that stuff. And I'm like, y'all want a massive victory literally across the street. How'd that work out? But I don't say it. I just feel like saying it. but I don't. But for those who are concerned about my security on these travels, rumor has it I'll be picking up a guy named Hunch in a gun truck behind me, starting at about Fargo. So
Yes.
bring it on.
So I will be watching the news and should be, is what you're telling me.
We're gonna be proving that traveling Overwatch thing we talked about in class. So.
Well, for anybody that got mad at me about the beer truck comment, I literally managed a convenience store in the state of Oklahoma right next to a reservation for a year, and yeah, it's true.
Nobody's mad at you, Marbles. We're all good.
Yeah, man, you could have said he could have bought a bunch of flasks, and every time they were coming after him, he could have opened the window, said frag out, and thrown one out.
I mean, that also would have worked.
All right, gents. All right. So,
Yeah,
in order to introduce our next topic, I'd like to take us away to probably our most famous guest we've ever had on the show. Go ahead, Sean Connery.
I've got to ask you about the penis mightier.
Le Pen is mightier. Le penis is mightier. Conservative national rally crushes Macron, socialist in first round of French election. So, yeah, if you weren't aware that there was a call for new elections in France, and just in time for the right wing to basically just run roughshod over their left wing opponents. As expected, Le Pen's conservative, or in the worlds of liberal media, far right, National Rally Party won the first round of France's parliamentary elections on Sunday. Exit polls showed, but the final result will depend on several days of horse trading before next week's runoff.
You know, anytime you want to read European media, when they say far right, they mean barely right of center. Just so you know.
Probably very aligned with Vichy GOP in America. I mean, you know, like that kind of, you know, just, you know, John McCain-esque, you know.
I'd like to point out that we called it when he first said he was throwing these snap elections. We said this is going to backfire terribly on Macron, and it did.
Yeah.
Unless his goal was to start a civil war in France.
Based on the mobilization of Antifa and the far left, we very well could see that. Now, I initially considered doing this as a full segment. But I think we're going to hold off, and probably we'll return to this on Wednesday once the kind of situation has developed a little bit. But I just want to kind of give you guys the initial kind of look at this. The National Rally Party was seen winning around 34% of the vote. Exit poll. Oh, hold on a second. Juan Cholo is telling me to shut up here for a second. Juan Cholo for $10 says, the irony is that most Mexicans that were living in the Southwest outside of Texas, California, were forced there by the Mexican government to outnumber the Indians. Well, I didn't know that.
So that they could maintain a claim and could deny a claim to the natives to have an independent nation. Yep.
Yeah, makes sense. That sounds like something especially the old school Mexican government would do. Exit polls from all these companies showed that the way ahead for both far left and centrist rivals, including President Emmanuel Macron's Together alliance, whose bloc was seen winning a paltry 20 to 23%, a far cry from the crushing victory several years ago. The New Popular Front, a hastily assembled left-wing coalition, was projected to win around 29% of the vote, the exit polls show. So the thing here that I'm worried about is not necessarily the National Rally definitely got the biggest thing, but if all the lefties go in together, then potentially they could create a coalition that would then overwhelm the National Rally.
I have something for you on that. Our friend, hold on, I've got to find that map that I just had up. Dang it. Where the heck did it go? Our friend that we showed on the show again just the other day, Egan Robot, is questioning the same thing, and he's kind of figured it out. So it is appearing as though people who are in France on the ground are saying that the leftist parties have gone hyper leftists, just like straight unabashedly communist.
Like communist, yeah.
And they are unwilling to deal with other members of the far leftist side because of because they're taking pro-Palestinian stances after a 12-year-old Jewish girl was raped to death in the streets of Paris. So
there are some contemporary issues that may come between the left unifying against the National Rally.
And that's exactly it, is that a lot of the people on the left have decided that they would rather ally with literally anyone but their own traditional friends that they've helped keep in power for so long.
Well, so there's a paragraph here. The National Rally's chances of winning power next week will depend on the political deal-making made by its rivals over the coming days. In the past, center-right and center-left parties have teamed up to keep the RN from power, but that dynamic known as Republican Front is less certain than ever. Let's see. If no candidate reaches 50% in the first round, the top two contenders will automatically qualify for the second round, as well as all those with 12.5% of registered voters in the runoff. Whoever wins the most votes takes the constituency. Let's see. According to Reuters, the high turnout on Sunday suggests that France is heading to a record number of three-way runoffs. These generally benefit the RN much more than the two-way contest, experts say. Yeah, that's interesting because it would split, some of the left-wing votes, especially if you have a couple key issues that separate those left-wing parties. Let's see. Sure enough, the horse trading began almost immediately on Sunday night. In a written statement, Macron called on voters to rally behind the candidate with a clear Republican and Democrat, who was clearly Republican and Democratic, which, based on his recent declarations, would exclude candidates from the RN and from the hard left France Unbowed party. The problem, of course, is that Macron's party was crushed in the European parliamentary elections precisely because people have had enough with the clearly Republican and Democratic puppets of the World Economic Forum. I think that's probably very safe to say. Joe, we've seen that those kind of WEF kind of candidates trying to, they're basically destroying the mainstream parties and all over Europe. And we've seen this a lot with the recent right-wing, victories.
Well, I would say in that same vein that if my name was Viktor Orban, I would probably hire some private security to supplement my government-provided security right now as he steps into the presidency of the EU. So, because they're not very happy that their own process, right, their own rotating presidency has led to allowing Viktor Orban to be in charge for a while. He's not actually in charge. He's kind of actually this number two person because the president of the European Council is actually over the president of the EU. So
still Ursula von der Leyen at the top.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is I don't have this. I don't have this in any of our notes, but something I saw on X is that Orban has a kind of a group of kind of conservative, especially Eastern European conservative countries that are kind of working with him to create kind of a right-wing bloc that is more nationalistic focus versus this pan-European idea that you get with a lot of the WEF EU folks.
Yes, Patriots for Europe is what they're calling it, I believe.
Yeah. I was actually just looking for it on Twitter, and I'm not finding it. But
Stan shared it.
If you've got the link, throw it in the private chat. We'll just throw it up here real quick. All right, never mind. All right, I tried. All right, let's go to.
By the way, on the Macron thing, one thing everybody kind of skips over or forgets every once in a while is that Macron was a bargain in the first place to prevent Le Pen from becoming the president. What, 6-7 years ago? He was bargained in there as a third party at the very last second.
Well, it was more than 6 or 7 years ago, but yes. So
I think there were elections 6 or 7 years ago, but he was already in charge before that election. But in order
he's
to
in
stay
his second 5-year term.
Yeah,
right?
and he's still got what, 3 years left?
Well, he's got a few days left now because he decided to be a dummy, but whatever.
Well, my understanding is the French president is not tied to this election.
If it's just like Europe. If her party wins the most seats, they get the presidency, just like the United Kingdom and the prime minister.
I thought their government was different. I thought that they had a separate presidential election. I guess I'm wrong on that one.
Look, all I'm saying is, all right, good enough.
Yes.
Yes. Macron versus Le Pen. All right, that's great. All right, that's the quality of YouTube. The people in the chat come here for, and I want to deliver it to them every day. All right. Let's move on to our next item in here. We've been kind of hinting towards this for months now, not just the last couple of weeks, but it's been heating up the last few weeks. Iran threatens Israel with obliterating war if it attacks Lebanon. So if you haven't been paying attention, Israeli indicators have shown a very high likelihood of them moving against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon in the near future. And the way they're doing it, it's not it's very deliberate. Joe, that's how I would term this military move. And Don, I bet we'll see a wide application of your favorite tube
Weapon.
and rocket-based artillery being used in this. As I think that Israel has learned their lesson, and that you're just going to drop every building more than 3 stories going into these urban areas.
I mean, it ought to be easy to do with my favorite methods of engagement, but oh man, if you think the crying about war crimes is bad now, wait till they're doing it in multiple countries.
Well, I have a feeling, I could be wrong here, but I have a feeling from the Israelis, like, oh, so we went through all of that effort and all that work and spent all that money for you guys to just call us war criminals anyways?
Yep.
Okay, fuck it. We're going back.
Well, right. It's like once you're a war criminal, it's kind of like you can't be a war criminal twice. It's a pretty definitive, indictment, right? So you're in for a penny, in for a pound, right? Iran threatens Israel with obliterating war if it attacks Lebanon. Iran's mission in the United Nations has put Israel and the world on notice, saying that if Israel launches an all-out war against Hezbollah in Lebanon, now a limited war would be okay, but an all-out war is right out. A Friday statement, the whole region would burn. A Friday statement from Iran's ambassador warned the UN that any full-scale military aggression in Lebanon would be against Hezbollah will mean that an obliterating war will ensue. Go ahead, Joe.
How come nobody says that to Hezbollah?
Yeah. I mean, they're already attacking.
Wouldn't launch an attack into Lebanon if Hezbollah would stop launching rockets into Israel. It is really just that simple.
I mean, how autistic of an answer do you want?
Just the truth.
I-
That if,
the-
if hold on, let me just preface this before I get another Don lecture. I understand. I know how Hezbollah is going to react, but my point is this: if Hezbollah would stop launching rockets into Israel, Israel would not attack into Lebanon. That is the fact, and that is true.
No, that's absolutely the hardcore truth, but not quite the question you asked, right? I mean, the people that are running around screaming like, "Hey, you're killing people who won't stop shooting rockets at you," want effectively they're the Joker. They want to see the world burn, right? So if you're a destructive douchebag that is doing something horrible somewhere in the world, you're a victim of circumstance, and if you have more than $6 to your name, you're an evil capitalist. And take a look at who we're talking about on both sides.
Yeah. All right.
I've never maintained that one side is more virtuous than the other. I'm just saying the simple fact is, if one side would stop lobbing rockets at the other side would stop lobbing rockets at them.
Oh no,
That's
absolutely.
Yeah, the irony there, Joe, is that if Hamas had not attacked Israel in the way that they did on October 7th, and essentially had done nothing different than the year prior, we would be exactly where we were on October 6th today. You know, it's entirely the fault of Hamas for where they are in Gaza, and to that end, the rising tension in Israel is because Hezbollah continues to attack south, across the border with long-range attacks, and they're basically causing trouble.
I'm pretty sure that's what I just said.
Yeah. I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah. I'll just go one step further. I do, in fact, claim that one side is more morally superior to the other, but I find that is self-evident. So.
Yeah, I mean, I will agree with you on that one, Watcher. When you look at the governments now, when it comes to just the people that aren't fighting, that's where it's hard for me to say that one poor farmer is better than.
Oh yeah. I'm not talking about the civilians. I'm specifically talking about the military actions taken on both sides. Although it gets, I'm not going to say government because it gets fuzzier when you break it down. That we'll just say hostile actions.
Those in charge, yeah, absolutely. All right, I want to go down through here a little bit further. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has acknowledged that this week that a 7-front war could open up in reference to all Iran's proxies across the region. And that's in reference to this, where the Iranian statement continued by emphasizing that all options, including full involvement of all resistance fronts, are on the table. So that would be all of those popular mobilization forces in Iraq, and we've got forces in Syria. We've got IRGC all over the place. We've got, of course, Hezbollah and Hamas, which is fairly attrited at this point. The U.S. has even to this end, if you're curious if anybody's taking this serious, we've talked about this before. The U.S. has already sent that amphibious military ships closer to Israel and Lebanon. We had I think there was a discussion in our private chat saying, is this going to be oh, no, it was Ron that put it out, posted on Twitter. He said, is this going to be NEO? Is it going to be against Hezbollah or kind of supporting, peace? Enforcing peace with Hezbollah on Israel. And so, the irony is I think you can make an argument that it's not clear what the U.S. is going to do, though I think there are pretty strong indicators that they're fairly pro-Israel in the fight against Hezbollah. So we'll see.
I think there are clear indications of what we're going to do. We're going to steam around in a bunch of circles, make ambiguous statements, and do some sort of a failed humanitarian operation.
Well, we're gonna lose the fight like we did against in the Red Sea. Against
I was just gonna say, have a couple rockets shot at us, and then wave ourselves off to go do PR tours a little further.
Only prosperity that Prosperity Guardian has preserved was Yemeni.
So. Joe, what's the name of that ship again? The what?
The Bershan?
Iranian. What do you bet that even if they go into southern Lebanon, that ship still doesn't get sunk?
It won't. It won't.
Unless the Israelis go down there and sink it. All right.
I mean, even after it damaged the USS Eisenhower so bad that they had to have a barbecue on the deck, it's still out there.
Don, any final thoughts on this?
No, I mean, I was going to go down the road that Joe went down. I guess the only thing that's left is like, what's the over under that we put another piece of infrastructure there and that sinks too?
Come on,
that floats away.
Well,
Right.
come on, Don, are you telling me that my plan to put a floating nuclear power reactor just off the coast of Gaza is a bad idea?
No, actually,
No, that's a great idea.
I think that's a brilliant idea, and it could have an industrial accident.
Can we dredge up some like 1970s commies to build it, please?
Well, ironically enough, somebody is actually paying attention to Lebanon because we've got a second article on this topic here. Over 80 UK warplanes deployed from Cyprus to Lebanon since 7 October. The UK Defense Ministry refuses to disclose the nature of the flights or their cargo. All the flights have gone from the UK's massive Akrotiri air base in nearby island of Cyprus, long a staging post for UK bombing missions in West Asia. Declassified UK notes that the number of UK military flights to Beirut has risen dramatically in recent months. The group tracked 25 flights in April and May and 14 so far in June. The flights from the UK base take around 45 minutes. You know, Joe, I mean, it would be a higher risk, but as long as the environment's permissive, absolutely getting civilians out on planes would be preferable to some sort of, potentially contested sea route.
The SCOTUS Trump immunity decision just dropped. I'll review it while we discuss this.
Okay. Joe, what's your take on that? On that kind of what that NEO might look like and how UK might be leaning into that?
Well, we ran another NEO in the southern Lebanon area, or the Brits did, into Cyprus before, so they have experience doing this. Cyprus is essentially a floating British base, so it's a pretty solid place to stage a NEO from. Probably the safest bet. You don't have to worry about the small craft like you just mentioned that could potentially blow up when it comes alongside. Yeah. The problem becomes securing Beirut International, which has always been a challenge, and we've lost a lot of people doing this.
Yeah.
So over the years, since 1958, I don't know. It'd be tough, but I do know that the Brits, the French, Americans, and Italians all have detailed plans for using Beirut International for exactly that purpose, because every one of those countries has done it at least 5 times since 1958. So,
well, I've seen several people with a little bit of influence on Twitter saying, hey, if you know any Americans that are in Lebanon right now, tell them to get their asses out ASAP. There's over 80,000 Americans in Lebanon, is my understanding, numbers wise, which is a pretty good amount. And the best time to get out in a situation like that is yesterday, right? I mean, it's always as you get closer to D-Day, it's always going to get harder and harder and harder to get out.
I also recommend it, as most private military contractor types do, take a land route to somewhere other than Beirut International, because there are an awful lot of bad folks who watch Beirut International for groups of folks who appear to be American or British getting out of their cars and getting into the airport. And that's when attacks happen. Mm-hmm. Go to Sidon or somewhere else, get on a plane anywhere but Beirut and get out of there. Yes.
All the Marble says the State Department will help them out, surely, right? Well, here's the thing. I mean, if you think Anthony Blinken is competent, then yes, I would say wait for him to get you out.
From personal experience, if they decide to run an NEO, they'll get up an NEO-specific website about 6 days after the operation begins, and you should have already been gone. So.
Exactly right. Exactly. Like I said, the best time to get out is yesterday.
Yeah. Get it on your own. Or, as we learned all the way back in 1979 with a guy named Ross Perot, hire a crew to do it for you because they'll do it way better than the U.S. government will.
Well, that was Iran, right? I mean, he basically there was a pretty good TV movie on that too that I thought was pretty decent. And I saw that. I guess it was back in the late '80s or early '90s.
Yep, had their own rat line running all the way to the north and out. So
yeah, well, and it was fairly successful because they kept it on the DL, and it was more kind of circumspect and rather than flashy. All right, let me catch up here. Peter Shays Helicopters for $5 says apparently the WEF has their own #MeToo problem. Multiple women have accused Klaus Mengele Schwab of sexual assault. The time the whole of the WEF gets investigated before we listen to any more trite. So the irony there is the literally when the WEF is in town in Geneva or wherever they go. They literally suck what is it? Davos, right? That's where they go. It literally sucks the prostitution business in Europe dry for like an entire week. So
sucked it
shocking.
dry, huh?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying it's double entendres when you're talking about the sex trade, right? And so no surprise there that Me Too might be a problem for the WEF crowd. And then random PNW guy 84 for $5 says the island of Cyprus is floating British base, huh? Joe, LOL. Is it going to tip over like Guam if they bring too many people there? I kid.
As I just pointed out, everyone knows that Cyprus floats. That's why you have to take a plane there, not a ship, because it moves. They have to fly around to find it.
Well, and the
Science,
problem is
bro.
The problem is that they both the British part of Cyprus and the Turkish part have motors, and they go the opposite direction, so it tends to just cancel out.
Well, and that's why there's always matching troop deployments, right? You can't have more British troops than Turkish, or the island will tip. So you got to get some more Turks on there, flatten it out. This is just science. Trust the science.
Trust the science. Yeah. Right. All right. Moving on. All right. Any more word on
kill the bot over here?
Yeah. So whoever said in chat that that they'd issued the Trump ruling is incorrect. What they have issued instead is a ruling about it is another blow against the administrative state, not quite as exciting as yesterday. In a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court ruled that the 6-year window to sue federal agencies begins when the plaintiffs experience damages due to their actions, not when the agency first made the ruling to try and change the law or whatever, meaning that all of those previous laws are now flat out open to being sued, because it's when the damage takes place, not when the government decided to change the laws.
Actually, that limits a lot of folks who had government actions damage them in past. So if it's been ruled that my conviction is false, and that conviction was more than 6 years ago, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Well, this is more. So previously, you had 6 years from the date they wrote the rule. Now it's 6 years from the date they fuck you with the rule.
So,
if
it happened to you more than 6 years later, you were just flat out screwed.
Yeah,
exactly.
The problem is all the intervening people, right? So if 7 years ago, the administrative state punished you for something that happened that they ruled on 10 years ago, you are totally screwed by this ruling, even though had this ruling existed at the time, you could have been like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's one of those kind of things you have to draw a line in the sand somewhere.
Yeah, drawing the line in the sand is that administrative rules should not exist. Laws should exist. If you want to make something illegal and you want to sanction an American citizen for it, it should be a law, not a rule. Very simple.
Also, my bros that are out there like, but then how would the government ever be able to write laws, and how you want them to be able to get down to the very fine minutia of all these things? Yes, either they actually learn what
they are either way.
That's their damn job, right?
Either they actually learn what they're legislating on, or they butt the hell out and leave it alone.
Or we realize the intent of the founders was never to have the federal government have this much authority over every little aspect of your life.
That's
and we
right.
get back to that.
everything not in the Constitution and the first in the Bill of Rights goes back to the states. Shocking. All right, gentlemen, let's real quick before we move on to our main segments of the day, let's talk a little bit about tactical-wisdom.com. Hey, you know what, Joe, before we talk about tactical-wisdom.com, let's talk about our event in Montana on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of August. Now, the website, frustratingly enough, is not ready, but that doesn't mean the event is not going on. It will be going on. The website will be going up as soon as we can get it. Me and Joe do not control the creation of the website. You know, this is the one frustrating aspect of having a partner like Shield Arms. You know, they bring a lot of stuff to bear, but then again, now we're dealing with a large organization that's doing the administrative work behind the event. And so as soon as we get the website together, it will be up. The one thing that will not change at this point are the dates. We are hard in. I have in another window. I've got my plane ticket booked and picked. I finally got two 15-hour legs, guys. So I got a decent flight. It's expensive, but it's at least.
I gotta convince Mrs. Tactical Wisdom that she needs to book her stinking flight. Anyway, are you coming into Missoula or Kalispell?
Yeah, Missoula.
Am I picking you up, or are you getting a car?
I'm flexible. If we need another car, then I'll get one, and if we don't, then I will not get one.
Well, let me find out if Mrs. JD is getting a car. If I got to go get her too, and then we'll figure that out. But anyway,
fair. But So the tipping point for me was going into Missoula. Missoula gives me the ability to have a 15-hour flight versus a 24-hour flight, which is what I would have going into Kalispell. So I will be flying into Missoula, and I will be there on the ground for about a week, I think. So getting there on or about the 30th, and then popping smoke on the 6th. So that's tentative right now. I haven't actually bought the tickets, but they're ready to purchase. So we will be there. The event is occurring. We do have sponsors. We do have guests that are coming in. We have all that. So make sure if you guys, your Arctic boy can't come, well, it's I'm flexible. Me, so $20 is $20. It is
$20 is $20. So Scott, I'll pick you up, but it's $20.
That's right.
A second ruling has been issued real quick on the Florida the Florida attempt to regulate social media companies as public utilities. I don't know the result yet. I have to look through it.
Interesting.
Shelly, you should absolutely come because it's a gorgeous setting. We're going to have a great time.
Way prettier than New England.
I know of at least two people, both of whom are probably in the chat, that are going to come to my class the weekend before and stay the whole week. It's just a great place to be. Absolutely gorgeous. There's some good rough country hiking you can do.
Yes.
Don and I accidentally found probably the coolest mini waterfall in the area. It was really cool.
It is.
We almost died doing so, but it was pretty sweet.
Yes, we did. That's what made it good.
And I've had several people from the chat kind of Hunch the Dirty Roofer says, my bet is August 3rd the website will be up. It'll be up before it's over, so you can pay somehow. No,
I'm pretty sure it'll be up next week. So it was supposed to be up last week, but I'm pretty sure it'll be up next week.
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure this will be once I see it, I'll know for sure. But I haven't seen it yet. But based on the things that I've been hearing in the back channels, this should be a pretty robust interface. So you guys will be able to, you'll be able to do everything you want to do with the website. And if you come out a couple days early, I mean, you'll have me and Joe you can hang out with, and we'll trade Kentucky bourbon for campground space. How about that? How about that now? All right. So anyway, tactical-wisdom.com. Joe, what do you got going on over there?
So I wrote an article last night that stemmed from a conversation that the missus and I had over the weekend about the other things that people don't prep that probably should, like copies of members of your family to distribute should someone become separated. Boy, that's not a bad idea at all. Copies of your own identification that someone could steal. And you might actually need to have a copy, especially if you're in a foreign country. Having a copy of your passport is always a good idea. Money, cash, silver, gold, all these different things that people don't think about that they should maybe include in their packs. Everyone's all about, hey, I got a water filter, I got spare ammo, I got shelter, but these other administrative things that will make your life much, much easier. A certain amount of cash, just because, like, if it's a temporary situation like the Maui thing, those folks got to hotels and things like that, and the credit card systems were down. How are you going to arrange lodging unless you have some cash on you? You need to think about these things ahead of time and maybe start working on them. So there's a whole list of those on the website today. So check that out. A lot bit of silver, actually, not a little bit, but
yeah.
Yes,
that's
so the Supreme Court ruling on the Florida and Texas social media laws was a punt. They punted it back down to the lower courts and gave specifications stating that they did not properly analyze their First Amendment issues. So
that's actually a good thing.
Yeah, but it also just means that entirely inconclusive. Ball back in play.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but definitely not what you'd call a result. All right, let's. There's
a comment over on Rumble about how much spam needs to be airdropped.
Careful.
Because of a member of this chat, we are good on spam.
It is that member of this chat.
Oh, okay. Well, guess what? We have all of the spam and all of the crayons. We are good. So
yeah, all of the spam. All right. Let me.
Yeah, Darth Kitty, that was the whole point. It's good advice for people fleeing from anything. So check out the article. And then while you're there, sign up for a class. If you're coming to Montana, sign up for my class beforehand, and we'll just hang out all week and go hiking in the mountains. Or whatever it is we do. We may just go hang out at Shield or go hang out at the A-Bar. Those who know the A-Bar is a good place to hang out.
Yes.
But hey, come on out. Check out my classes. If you're going to NC Scouts October course with K9 Reaper, my September Fieldcraft class is a good basis for going to that. So.
At the A-Bar with your K-Bar?
At the A-Bar with the K-Bar.
I'm going to take this moment to just kind of pimp my book a little bit here for a second because we have hit a milestone. We've got, let's see where we're at, 8 days left, and we have hit $20,000 with 336 backers.
Have we shown the mini off on stream yet?
What? No. That's what I wanted to make sure we do here because we haven't talked about this on this show yet. So we've got two new things on the. I'm going to go to the updates because we have pictures on the updates. So we have two new campaign perks have added. All right. So you're not sure if this is for you. Okay, I get that, right? Now, this is like literally the painless way to check out the first 29 pages of the book as a black and white digital ash can. So ash cans were kind of like the cheaply photocopied preview comics that they used to give out at comic book conventions and things like that as kind of dealer previews or to fan previews back in the day. So what this is a similar type of thing. It's a black and white, no color art, lettered book that will allow you to read the first 29 pages of our Land and Sea Paradise book, so you can get a flavor for what for the characters and just kind of what the story we're telling is all about. And so we've got that, and it's only $1. So if you get this, it's only $1. I got the letters back 2 days ago, and I haven't gone through them yet. But once I read them and they're good to go, then I'm basically sending it to the layout guy. The layout guy will put it all together, and we'll start sending those out within the next probably week. So if you were to buy,
I got to go log back on and make another purchase.
Well, so Joe, I will send you I don't want, you've already been very kind with what you've bought. So I'm going to make sure I send you one of these gratis. If you are a member of the council, that's my declaration. If you're a member of the council, I will send this to you for free. But if you're not, $1, come on, everybody here can pony up $1 to check out.
And when it comes tax time,
the
Scott
book.
sends me a W-9 for her W-2 for the for $1.
Exactly right. In addition to that, so if that's the kind of the low end of the scale, right, $1, kind of more of a higher end item. If you've been a fan of this channel for a while, you've probably seen some of Watcher's miniature painting videos. Both myself and Watcher are big fans of Warhammer 40K. Less so of like BattleTech minis and things like that, but this is a non-landed sea miniature shown for scale next to a landed sea Rhino class Asher miniature, and as you can see, that is probably a BattleTech mini that it's next to. So it's about the similar size, but this is in scale. This is a much larger scale because whereas the BattleTech mini is like a 30-meter tall deal, this is only like a 12 feet tall at the most. So it comes unassembled and unpainted. You'll get it. You put it together, and if you choose to paint it, you can. If you got some flexibility on how you pose it based on how you assemble it, and that the price point on the miniatures is $25. As this is a fairly exclusive, only available right now through this campaign, there will be exclusive packaging for that item. So if you get it, it will be collectible. But and distinguishable from later Rhino minis that will come out, and that's $25. So if that's something that's interesting to you, all right, check it out. If not, I appreciate it, and we'll see you out there. Hopefully, if you haven't done it already, you'll find something that you like on the campaign and you'll back it. If not, maybe you'll send it towards somebody who might be into this kind of stuff. All right, that's all I got.
Immunity did now drop.
All right, so what happened?
Okay, I'll check into it, but
it kind of looks like they split the fence.
Okay.
I posted something else in chat that was distracting me. Sorry about that.
Is it the French feminists?
Yeah, there's some protests in France, chat.
That I've got a flight booked in 10 minutes. I'm gonna have to go and supervise.
Yeah. That's who that cop was on the radio with. Was Joe. Okay, so from Tim Pool, breaking Supreme Court rules in favor of Trump, president is immune, official acts are immune, unofficial acts are subject to criminal prosecution.
Well then, I mean, that pretty much means everything that they're trying to prosecute him on would be immune. I mean,
yeah, that feels a little simplistic to me, and I have found Tim Pool to be kind of, shall we say, tard-brained as of late.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to find a different interpretation.
Of presidential records, no matter where, is official. So
he's never. Okay,
so from Greg Price, breaking Supreme Court has sided with President Trump, ruling that presidents cannot be held criminally liable for official actions of government and delivering a nuke to Jack Smith's J6 indictment. 6-3 decision.
Well, I mean, once again, the fence setters have gone the correct way on this. Yeah, we've got if you're in the Rumble chat, we've got the link over there if you want to go check that out yourself.
If you're in the side chat, it's been there a couple minutes.
It has. Yeah, I've been reading it. Yeah.
Just read that. No, we're not. We're not going to read it. I refuse.
No. We should not. No, it's very verbose. We should not read this on stream. No.
Yeah, no. Look, it's written by Roberts in a very political fashion, so it's going to be like it's going to kill you with boredom.
Hey, real quick on the note of distraction from our main topic. Real quick before we go to our main topic, do you guys want to this Tucker Carlson thing? Did you guys read this post? I think it's pretty interesting. It kind of is a coda to what we were all kind of talking about. Whether they would try to get rid of Biden after the. That was the big topic on Friday. By the way, big show on Friday, a lot of super chats, a lot of new subscribers, and a lot of viewers on that. So this is interesting, and I'll just go ahead and read this. This is from Tucker Carlson, from an unusually good source, right? So that's how he opens. Obama's tweet supporting Joe Biden was disingenuous. In private, Obama is telling people Biden can't win, and he is therefore in favor of an open convention. Obama will not say whom he supports, nor as of yesterday afternoon had he met personally with Biden to deliver the message. Relations between the Obamas and the Bidens have never been warm. At times they've been hostile, but recently they've deteriorated further, mostly due to Jill Biden. In the hours and days after the debate, she kept her husband cloistered away from anyone who might convince him to drop out. Jill Biden is the driving force behind her husband's re-election campaign, just as she was in 2020 when other members of the family, including Biden's sister Val, considered him too impaired to run. The next generation of potential Democratic candidates understands all this as an opportunity, and they're circling, particularly Gretchen Whitmer, who is promoting herself aggressively. But the irony is I think that I don't see Gretchen Whitmer having any great amount of popularity in a larger electorate. Do you guys?
Well, yeah, look, I'll tell you where her popularity is that matters. Hey, who teamed up with Gretch to play fake kidnapping?
The FBI.
Oh, right, the three-letter boys. Oh,
yeah, no, I get that, right? I mean, so the problem is with that is that ultimately you have to break, in order to do the election rigging that you would need to make that happen, it would have to be so blatantly obvious that it would probably cause some sort of a civil conflict. But then again, maybe that's the objective.
Ever be elected from the inside of his basement, right?
Yeah, weird. The most popular president ever. Yes. Anyway, so I mean, I don't know. Guys, go around the horn on this one, and then we'll hit our main topic. Joe, thoughts?
No, that's it.
Don?
I mean, it's kind of high school drama things at the moment. Do I trust Tucker Carlson more than some guy talking about what Bill O'Reilly said, which was basically the same thing a couple of days ago? Yes, I do. But at the same time, we're pretty far down the road of like, I know a guy who knows a guy who said, and in the end, that's what that tweet is.
Yeah. I mean, if Bill O'Reilly had just come out and said it, then that would be one thing. But when a guy says Bill O'Reilly said it, then it's kind of like,
yeah.
Well, I'll agree with you, but I'll add this caveat. It's a little less like a random person on the street or somebody commenting on a situation they have no connection with and saying that, and a little more like, hey, I went to same school with so and so, and the word going around people who actually know them is. Which, I mean, there's still rumors, but quality, right?
Indeed, right? So, this is why I started with, do I trust Tucker Carlson more? And okay. I mean, the guy does very clearly know. I mean, he talks all the time about the various people that he knows, and plenty of people have confirmed what he said in various times and places. And that's great, but I know a guy who said he was there is... the best case scenario is this is all correct and you're getting it filtered twice.
All right. Let's move on to our
that's
yeah, Sean, go ahead.
That's basically it. But please, broker the convention. Go for it. Broker it. Please broker the convention, because there is so much data that says you will get screwed in a broker convention. Please do it.
Well, and that just also gives a big target for your Antifa mob that'll be, waiting outside with bated breath to see if their preferred candidate gets screwed or not.
Antifa wants
correct.
none of those candidates, by the way.
That's what I'm saying, right? They'll have some wazoo candidate that nobody on the inside of the Democratic Party would want.
No, they actually don't want any candidate. They want a Marxist overthrow of the U.S. government. There's a huge difference there. They don't want a candidate.
Yeah.
Well, we've got several Marxists inside the government. Maybe they would float one of those.
Not Marxist enough for those guys.
No,
you may be right.
Unless they could resurrect Lenin and quote run him by killing everybody else, they're not going to be happy.
Yeah, if you're to the right of Mao, no, thank you. All right. All right, let's look at our main topic of the day. So we're talking defense production from several different angles, because this is something that has become quite a story since the kind of Russia Ukraine war has gone in full effect. We've talked about this in various ways in the past, whether it was, not enough artillery production, not artillery production, but artillery round production, the cost of, our expensive, exquisite missiles to shoot down really cheap drones. So there's definitely some kind of stuff.
I have to. I have to. I'm sorry. I am very happy that the U.S. government is finally catching up to shit I have been screaming about on a personal level since 2012, to the point that I have basically lost most of my friends in the military because I continuously point it out every time we talk. It's almost as if China had the headline here: China actively targeting U.S. industry base.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, let me
almost as
before
if China wrote a book about it or something.
Yeah, for the sake of somebody who is not watching the show and they're only listening watcher, please let me read the headline before you start commenting. China actively targeting U.S. industrial base, warns Cybercom chief. The People's Republic. This is a quote. The People's Republic of China efforts to steal intellectual property, gain critical infrastructure footholds, and disrupt supply chains pose a significant risk to DoD's ability to defend the nation. So this is a breaking defense article.
Congratulations on catching up with the rest of us from about the last 15 years.
I'm sorry.
Exactly
it's
right,
almost
exactly
as if they wrote a fucking book about it and published it, and then highly promoted the two dudes who wrote it, and then executed on that book point for point over the next 20 years or something. Weird. It's startling.
Yeah, I mean, but you're not unique in that role, watcher. I mean, I think pretty much all of us on this panel have been longtime advocates for this type of a position. The defense industrial base. Let me go down. The People's Republic of China efforts to steal intellectual property, gain critical infrastructure footholds, and disrupt supply chains poses a significant risk to DoD's ability to defend the nation. Also, the director of the NSA said that the PRC is deploying extensive resources both in the military and commercial sector to target the defense industrial base. To combat this threat, Hugh emphasized the industry must stand guard and unite with the Department of Defense to fend off adversary attacks. We realize that cybersecurity is not the top priority for many of the companies within the defense industrial base. It's just not their primary focus. These companies and the entities focus on manufacturing, innovating, and developing the tools that win this country's war. This is where the partnership adds value. The defense industrial base must enhance its cybersecurity, and the Cybercom and the NSA team are willing to and eager partners to assist you. See, this is where I get worried, right? It's like, sell your soul to the NSA, is what I hear when I read this.
Well, let us handle it. Just give us the keys to the kingdom, bro.
We're from the government. We're here to help.
Funny you might say that, because as soon as we started looking into this, I started going, hey, wait, who's Timothy D. Haw? And gee, that name sounds familiar. As well it should, because it turns out that Timothy D. Haw is the U.S. Air Force general who used to serve as the director for the National Security Agency and the chief of the Central Security Service.
All right, let's see. Going on here, we've got Lieutenant General Robert Skinner, the Director of Defense Information Systems Agency and the Commander of Joint Force Headquarters Department of Defense Information Networks, echoed Ha's concerns about PRC attacks against the defense industrial base. He especially emphasized how the PRC is after intellectual property, notably using part of his Wednesday keynote speech to show off a PRC copy of DISA's Thunderdome strategy. I think when I think of this, the ultimate kind of thing that China can just copy and download from us. Joe, all these radios now that are all software-defined radios, right? Essentially, if you copy the software that the firmware and the software that you're using on these radios, you can basically make your own versions of the exact same thing and get a lot of the advantages. No?
Yeah, and for those who say, oh, but those cheap Chinese radios, look, a Motorola at this point is essentially a software-defined radio, or at least system on a chip, SoC radio.
Right.
So it's, yeah, absolutely. And what's funny is that everyone says, oh, but these radios are made by Harris, so they're in the U.S., or they're made by E.F. Johnson, so the U.S. Yeah, they're made of Chinese components here, right? I mean, they're still the same radio. Newsflash,
if you're lucky,
the
Taiwanese components.
But all the parts of that Harris radio are swap outable with the Chinese copy, the Triumph. They're the same radio. So yes, it can all be copied.
Yeah. They're listening. They're looking at our doctrine. They're studying our doctrine. They're analyzing our strategies and our plans. They're focusing on disrupting our critical infrastructure, targeting our critical infrastructure, making that a focus area. They are studying in detail our national and our DoD strategies. And this goes, we've talked about some of the infrastructure targets that would absolutely be on the menu in a war with the PRC or any major near peer competitor. And that goes to like the electrical grid and things like this. But they're looking at much more subtle attacks, I think, that, we might not even notice, anything shy of a, beat you over the head with a sledgehammer kind of thing. Like, if they were to do cyber attacks against, weapons production facilities or labs where they're doing software work, it's like all of these big, the F-35 looks great, right? It's got a big jet engine in it. It's got weapons and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, the thing about the F-35, and we always make fun of it for this, is we call it the flying router, is that ultimately, if you cripple its computer brain and the chips that make that up, then you cripple the entire aircraft. It's just a giant paperweight, without that computer. And that's the kind of thing that I think becomes a much more kind of attractive target because it's less obvious when they use it. Hey Don, real quick. We've talked. Your area of expertise is artillery. What are the cyber implications of degraded operations if they take away your FTC computers?
So, not good. I got out over a decade ago, and over a decade ago, the central portions of the military, the DoD as a whole, were shoving the idea that degraded operations should not exist down the throats of every artillery battery in the country. So much so that they were they started doing that thing that commands do, where they don't want you to do something, but they don't have a good way to tell you that you can't do it. And so, in the event of any personnel shortage, absolutely no manual gunnery will be computed, right? And you get stupid rules like that. And that, preferential computing of artillery missions will be done digitally. And it's up to you if you want to do manual aside. And so when these things start to come down, commanders are generally smart enough to get the political implications of what you're looking at. And so they start telling you things like, well, I don't think our battery actually needs to do any of this manual operation thing. So much so that it was a constant fight that I personally had with people. And for most of that, for most of the latter years, I was lucky enough to have a CO that went, I don't care what you do. You fire and make me look good. So keep doing that and I'll give you top cover. And the guys in the battery next to me were like, we don't know how to do manual gunnery. Nobody knows how to do this anymore. You are probably the only person in the battalion who has a clear grasp of it. And that was 10 years ago. So I would absolutely bet that those computer systems go out, decent chance all the batteries stop firing everywhere, all the time, no matter what.
Yeah, that's it's just
Well,
the systems are becoming more automated, but I think that there have been people, especially since China and Russia have become bigger threats, who are worried about degraded operations. So I do believe that is a movement within specifically artillery world, but outside of that as well.
So I hope that you're correct, but notably, the lifelong fear of artillery since the missile was invented, that artillery should just go away but we have these missile things, is sort of playing out. The Marine Corps is cut down from a battery on aircraft carriers down to 2 guns. They cut the number of batteries that they have basically in half. They shut down whole battalions. The battalion that I was in and deployed with shut down for something like 6 years. And they only recently brought it back a year or two ago. There's this real idea as sort of a byproduct of the soft wars that artillery is too much of a club, and we're a precision tool now. We win wars by killing 6 guys. And so if we can't send Delta to win the war, then what are we even doing in it?
Yeah, Watcher, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think what Don is talking about and is worried about is best illustrated by the highlighted portion of the article right here. And look, I'm friends with people who work full-time professionally in the cybersecurity realm. I am far and away from thinking that some kind of lecture is ever going to change this, because the good folks fighting the good fight over in cybersecurity have been screaming at the top of their lungs about this, to the point that it is a meme in their circles, and they've just basically given up and said, hey, y'all, you know what, let me back up a little bit. Joe, if a target has never, ever, ever been attacked by anything ever, how hard is it for somebody to convince them that they need security until after something happens that scares them?
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
And so that's where we're at. Is that all right? We keep telling you, the cybersecurity realm has essentially been saying, in the digital sense, stay strapped or get clapped to the people that they work for a very long time, and they continue to get ignored. And so their point is, all right, get mugged then.
So this issue is so pervasive, it's hard to describe. But as a example, there's a conference called DEF CON. It is the defense conference. The whole premise is cybersecurity. And 15 years ago now, 20 years ago now, they started doing, hey, this is how you hack X, Y, or Z thing. And the companies that were subject of the hack started suing them under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1984. And so the conference hired its own legal team to publish disclosures to the companies anonymously that said, hey, by the way, your security sucks, and these guys are trying to tell you how to fix it. And then the lawyers got sued. So this is the response to, you don't have security, is, hey, stop embarrassing me or we're going to sue the pants off you.
Yeah. Well, well, and that's just the the technical side of it. That doesn't even get into the whole social engineering piece, and which is kind of system independent of hacking. That's just con artist stuff. So I wanted to go ahead and move on here. We're running a little late, so I just want to continue on. Switching gears here, senior U.S. Army official stresses military logistics cooperation with South Korea. All right, so now I think this is a good, when it comes to defense production, I think this is a good initiative, right? You identify your key allies, the ones that have like maybe comparable technology bases. South Korea, Japan, Australia, UK, these are countries that have similar tech bases as the US. So why not potentially partner with them? You know, Jim has been talking about, for a long time, he's been telling us about ship production and how we are woefully far behind China in ship production. So why not tap into the largest ship producer in the world, South Korea, to help with some of that? So this is a Yonhap article. So this is our news article from here in Korea. A senior U.S. Army official on Thursday highlighted the importance of military maintenance and logistics cooperation with South Korea, calling it a win-win effort that will help ensure deterrence and save money. Speaking at a forum, Douglas Bush, Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisitions, Logistics, and Technology. By the way, this is the guy who's really been leading a lot of these efforts to increase like 155 shell production and a lot of the, stuff relating to consumable defense material that has been being consumed an awful lot in the last couple of years. So we have started increasing that, and he's part of it. Let's see. Asserted the need for more attention to maintenance, repair, and overhaul aspect, an area eclipsed by military efforts to buy or develop flashy weapon systems. If we, Don, oh yeah, you're still here. Don, real quick, there are your sexy systems, and then there's maintenance, right? And and we've been hearing these stories about the tubes getting shot out of 777s and things like that in Ukraine. This is clearly an area where you could make a little bit of money, that MRO aspect of military purchasing, right?
Oh yeah. Tubes are hard, right? Tubes are they're titanium. It's a lot to work with. You want to go capitalize on this shortfall. Start making coaxial elbows that you can sell to the government. And everybody who's ever dealt with a radio has the exact same reaction that Watcher just did, right? Like, oh yes, obviously. I had my whole battery shut down because one of these things failed, and it took like 3 hours to get another one in the middle of a field op, right? Because nobody has them. They break all the time. They're garbage. And is it a thing that you should need to be able to shoot? No, but guess what? It's going to be all that little stuff, right? All cables and antennas and elbows and all these kinds of things. These kinds of shortfalls have existed for a super long time, and the military's answer is like, well, but we have enough. And every time that you try and order one that you don't absolutely need right this second, it gets denied. And their reasoning for that is, oh, but the producer it will only give us so much at any given time, and so it's not gonna be if we really had to go balls out, it's not gonna be tubes, right? It's gonna be lug nuts on house.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be stupid, menial things that nobody thinks is important until you don't have one.
Hey, real quick, this term came up in a conversation the other day. What is seating the tube on a howitzer?
Seat, like sit down.
Yeah. And I think this is on self-propelled guns, but
well, so it's all the. At least hypothetically, it's all the same thing. When howitzers don't have a chambering mechanism, right? So you quite literally set 100 pounds of artillery round on this little arm shelf thing that sits in front of the tube, and then anywhere between 1 and 4 guys grab this giant ramrod that it's sort of like a digging bar kind of size, and it's got a fat thing on the end of it that lets you catch the bottom of the round, and then quite literally run at the howitzer so that you get the same seating of the round that like your AR when it chambers around and it it's actually in the chamber. And I've seen one guy do it. It's wild. He was, like 200 pounds of nothing but muscle with an 8-pack.
Just out of it's seating. Like I'm going to take a seat, right? Like you sit in a seat, right?
Yeah. Well, so if you've ever had a jam in your AR where like the round only goes halfway in or something, the round is not seated, right?
Yeah, it's not in battery. Yeah, I gotcha. All right. No, I just was curious. That term came up the other day, and I thought that's what it meant, but I wasn't quite sure. So, all right, real quick, I want to finish up this article here. For the United States, 70% of the cost of weapon system is sustainment, repair, and maintenance over time. He added, noting possibility of greater cooperation with South Korea in the MRO field. His remarks came as the questions have lingered over whether the U.S. can effectively sustain combat operations far away from the mainland, particularly in the event of contingency operations in the Strait of Taiwan, the Taiwan Strait, or elsewhere. The irony here is that if you try to start relying on South Korea for this kind of stuff, I bet China ain't going to play that game where they just let you have you're not fighting from South Korea, but we're just gonna let you have free reign of your actions in South Korea to support a defensive war against China in the Taiwan Strait. I don't think so. South Korea may change its mind very quickly if they start having Chinese intermediate range ballistic missiles falling on their defense industrial production places here. I wanted to finish up here. The importance of having these things go forward with our allies on the ground in place rather than having to rely on long supply chains back to the U.S., especially in a conflict, and building those stocks, repair sets, capability, and ammunition stores is both deterrence, but also help overcoming fighting sophisticated enemy who attacks our supply chains and our supply routes. Yeah, I mean, okay, so this stuff is kind of boring. It's logistics, but then again, the logistics is what separates professionals from the amateurs. I mean, clearly they're thinking about this. Well, the pro has the amateur has 7 mags. The pro has 7 mags and a supply of cash, in his truck and his house and all this kind of stuff. So,
a lot of us aren't going to have that. We're going to have whatever we can carry. But yes, I get it.
True. That's true. Yeah. Anyway, so South Korea being a key U.S. ally, they're definitely working with that. What do you guys think of relying on these Asian powers to potentially, help be the arsenal of American deterrence in East Asia?
What a brilliant thing. Normally, like in a normal force, you would try and take your supply lines and your factories and such. You try and move them away from the enemy. But in a brilliant strategy, we've decided to take our factories and shipyards and put them within close missile range of China, because that's the smart thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, they're not our factories; they're South Korea's factories.
Well, but if they are producing it for us, then they're acting as ours.
Well, no, and this is where Steve's comment comes in. I wouldn't rely on South Korea in a fight with China because China will be next to them, and they know that, right? And so that's the problem, right? We're putting our eggs in that basket only to have the rug pulled underneath us potentially, especially if the winds have changed. The current president here is very pro-U.S. and he's very hardline against both China and North Korea. But one election away from having somebody who is much more pro-China and pro-North Korea.
So remind me, in World War II, when we were the arsenal of democracy, as the left so loves to proclaim us, and we were trying to make sure that we got as much weapons and armament to our allies in Europe as possible, we built factories on Germany's doors. No, we didn't do that. No,
we didn't put them in France.
Weird, right? Like,
what?
It's a weird thing.
We didn't put them in the Philippines.
So it's almost like there might have been a reason for that.
We weren't building bombers in the Philippines.
That was right. I swore we could have been right. Like that's where the Manhattan Project happened, right? Like we had all of our key scientists and industrial personnel.
The Japanese did some R&D in the Philippines. If you know, you know.
Oh
yeah, that's rather spicy, Joe.
But yeah, I'm just what a modern military strategy. They are the very models of the modern major general, and I'll leave it there.
Well, I just kind of sidestepping that comment, Watcher, and going to your other funny comment. Breaking: salt prices plummet on leftist reaction to Supreme Court rulings.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, leftist tears are flowing, my friends. All right, I want to move on to the next one here. Germany has shifted China strategy amidst Beijing's changing behavior, German diplomat says. It's quite clear that the emphasis has shifted from a focus on partnership and cooperation to more competition and even more rivalry, diplomat says. Hey, guys, so newsflash, Europe now sees it the same way Trump was telling them to look at China back in his administration. Shocking again. Trump was right.
Yeah, breaking news. China hates you. Weird.
What? They're always so friendly.
Breaking news. China's trying to sell you internet gear with spoofed out firmware that they can take control of from back in China.
Flash traffic for UCOM. China are the bad guys. Over.
Stop.
Speaking during a foreign policy event of the Hudson Institute on June 28th, the Director General for Foreign Affairs, Thomas Bagger, the State Secretary of German Foreign Ministry, stated that Germany's position on China is based on its tripartite approach as a partner, competitor, and systematic rival has shifted to rival. It's quite clear that we already kind of said that one. He noted that Germany is now changing its policy to China, focusing on de-risking and reducing dependence on Beijing, particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes reducing reliance on China for medical equipment, basic medical supplies, raw materials for technology. He acknowledges a decoupling from China would hurt Germany's economy tremendously. Well, but here's the thing,
but not
Joe.
nearly as much as a non-decoupling will.
Yeah. Well, Joe, this is something that we've been talking about on this channel for a while, and some politicians are starting to take this seriously in America, is noting that, hey, depending on China for all this important shit is probably not the smartest thing to do.
What? Come on, you gotta talk. You can't talk all this crazy talk.
Crazy talk.
Yeah. I mean, having China involved in every aspect of our internet infrastructure and power infrastructure, bridge infrastructure, might not be a good idea. Call me crazy, I know. But
I mean,
Joe,
allowing them to buy all the
the
rare earth elements.
I will not see China besmirched like this, Joe. Listen, having them involved in your infrastructure is an excellent idea. Ask the African National Congress.
Yeah, I was just gonna
say.
say.
Hey, seriously though, if you really want to be alarmed, look at how many projects in the U.S. were done by the Chinese Road and Bridge Building Corporation. How many strategic bridges? How crazy is it to have somebody who has a strategic interest in your bridges failing to let them build a bridge?
Yeah, I should go back there. I'm sorry. I often drop deep cut jokes and forget that many of you are just joining us for the first time. For those of you unaware, China got invited to build the big building for the Pan-African Nations Council or whatever it is, and they built it and everything was going great for many years, and then wouldn't you know it, somebody found out that literally every square inch of the building is bugged in the most exquisite manner you could possibly imagine. Like every type of sensor you could possibly imagine embedded in every square inch. As a betrayal.
They looked at it as a betrayal because China is what put the ANC in power in South Africa. So
now, anyway, I just thought on that note, China is not your friend, and especially if you're going to buy rockets from them.
I believe there's a quota on that. China is asshole.
China is asshole. That's right. Let's go move on to our next story here. Chinese rocket static fire test goes horribly wrong. So, I mean, Chinese defense production. Now, Joe, last week we had an event that highlighted some Chinese defense production. That was the coup attempt in Bolivia. And some of these Chinese MRAPs ended up, like, they basically bumped up against a curb and broke the tie rods so that, like one wheel's going straight on the thing and the other one's canted at like a 90-degree angle. So clearly you got some of the export stuff, clearly they got some QA QC concerns on their military gear that they're
China
selling.
knows how to empire well, right? You don't give your vassal states the best equipment because they will then rise up against you, right?
I
would point out that quality control problems on client state vehicles is not indicative of the status of the PLA.
All right, Watcher, if you could, there's a War Intel tweet. If you could just play this tweet while I read from this. Normally, I would agree with you, Joe.
Let me finish my thought, though, real quick. Let me finish my thought.
Go ahead.
How the Chinese business model operates, especially in the defense sector, is...
push pause, Watcher. And go back to the beginning.
Is zero waste. So if I have 5 vehicles come off the line, 4 are perfectly good for frontline use, and one's got an issue, China doesn't believe in sending that back. They believe in selling it to some sucker and keeping the best for themselves. So
your B grade stuff, right? Your blemishes, right? Things like that. Real quick before we get too further away into this, there's a couple super chats I want to read here. Fed Postus Maximus for $1 over on Rumble says, a broker convention, great. Here's how Bernie can still win. Match me, bros. I'd give more, but I'm LARPing as a Bernie bro. Yeah, roger that. I got you, brother. All right. Peter Shaves Helicopter Tours for $2 says, speaking of products from China, Joe, is the Arduino. No, I don't know what that is.
Arduino.
Arduino.
It is a small, tiny computer that is easily programmable and expandable.
It's not.
Is the Arduino the only
Ultra and the not?
I was just want to finish.
I'm way ahead of you. I heard that already.
Yeah, I just want to finish the super chat and then
I'll
toss it to you. Is the Arduino the only way to make a homebrew drone scanner jammer now that FCC outlawed the other units?
Well, I'm not going to talk about how to manufacture a jammer because I don't want to go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you that as far as a drone scanner, the Mahalit, I think it's called the SL1, or the Tiny SA Ultra. Fantastic drone scanners.
Tiny SA. There we go. Yeah,
So
Tiny SA is where it's at. I have 4.
I have a slightly different
brushbeater.store. Yeah.
I have a slightly different answer that goes to earlier in the show, which is to say, dependent entirely on how deep your pockets are, the Chevron deference opinion just got overturned. So.
Yeah, I mean,
That's true.
Jammers may be back on the menu.
Jammers are back on the menu, boys.
All right, let's jump into this story here because this is a case where, Joe, maybe the crap goes to their domestic production too. Let's see, Beijing T-Bond Technology Co., also known as Space Pioneer, suffered a catastrophic failure on Sunday during a static fire test of the first stage of their Tailong 3 launch vehicle at a testing facility in Henan province. The first stage of its Tailong 3 rocket under development had detached from the launch pad during a test due to structural failure and landed in a hilly area. I mean, so China is very famous now for dropping its rocket booster stages almost completely intact on their population. This is what you call a win for quality control here.
This one was really bad too because it still had all of its hypergolic fuel on board.
It was full of fuel. Yeah, look at that. It's like a freaking mini nuke going off.
Oh no! So that exploded, but the hypergolic fuel tanks survived and are leaking, which is awful because that stuff is holy shit, unbelievably toxic.
Let's see. Space Pioneer's two-stage Tailong 3 rocket is partially reusable rocket that is under development to compete with Elon Musk's SpaceX.
That one is not reusable.
We're gonna bang it out. You know, it's just a couple dents. No biggie.
You can buff that out.
Buff that out. little primer.
Little Bondo on the end.
Basically, they're saying that we'll compete with. This is what competing with Elon Musk looks like in China. Footage uploaded on X.
Out though that for everyone who wants to loll about this, ask the folks at Vandenberg how often our anti-ballistic missiles have worked in testing. So just because we shoot ours out over the ocean where no one can videotape them doing exactly this doesn't mean it doesn't happen to us too.
Yeah, absolutely. Rocket science is hard.
It's not rocket science.
Shocking that sometimes it doesn't work the way you'd think. That being said, in this case, it actually sounds like the rocket is not what failed, but the actual test stand that was supposed to keep it affixed, right? And so, one of the things that I think this just kind of underlines is it is throughout Chinese economic development, you've got a serious lack of real quality assurance within almost everything they do. This is the reason why you have tofu drag construction. What did the journal say? He said the main stupid here is launching them over popular. 100%. We were just talking about that the other week.
Now, I'm sorry, but I have to be realistic. If you don't understand Chinese culture, let me make this explicit for you. These are not ethnically Han people. This wasn't a populated area to them.
Yeah, they don't care, right? If you don't realize it, the Chinese are almost more crazy about ethno-nationalist ideas, as just like the Nazis were. The Han Chinese are the Aryans of the Chinese world, and if you're not a Han Chinese, you're kind of a second-class citizen. Space Pioneer was conducting its test as a build-up to an orbital launch for the Tailong 3, which is a benchmarked against the SpaceX Falcon 9 in the coming months. According to Space News, adding that the company announced earlier this month that it had secured $207 million in new funding. Meanwhile, SpaceX continued to dominate the industry. And then, of course, the article shows the charts that we've been showing the last few weeks, where SpaceX is just absolutely bodying the rest of the satellite delivery world with the amount of both flights and tons to orbit that they are producing. Yeah, you're going to... I think you're going to... or no, what is this? This is another angle from that same flight, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, just found it in the article.
The interesting thing is that didn't have a pointy end on the rocket, It literally had no kind of top portion of the rocket on. It was not intended to fly. So, he's like, oh, crap. Is that coming this way? I sure hope.
Yeah, at least he's on the right side of that arc. Ooh.
I know, right?
I was worried there for a minute.
So beautiful, so beautiful. Oh, wait a second. It's coming down. Oh, God. And then, we're not going to get to see the fireball. They had a pretty impressive. I was going to say, it's still playing. So.
Okay, so the shockwave took a little while to hit him. But I guess we don't see the fireball.
Well, there's a hill there.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've shown these charts that just showing how SpaceX is absolutely dominating the rest of the world on tons to space, number of launches. It's not even comparable.
What happens when you're not filled with bureaucratic nonsense all the time.
I know, right?
Look, weird theory, weird idea, right? Like, but hey, what's the main difference between SpaceX and all those other companies? Imperial system,
not owned by Elon Musk.
Yeah.
SpaceX is.
Hold on, Imperial system.
There it is.
I'll take it.
metric system. Weird. Oh.
Yes. Anyway, so I like the quote here in the article. Musk is literally America's rocket program, space echelon, and I mean, it's just it's not even comparable. So yeah, good luck on that, China. I mean, yeah, they don't give their best stuff to their, but yeah. All right. Anyway, so the next thing I want to talk to you, and we're going to go through this kind of quick because we're running short of time. So there is an effort in the media to kind of highlight this kind of weird buildup that Joe, I was really surprised to even hear this, right? Because we were talking about this before the show. How do you have a buildup on the Belarusian border by Ukrainian troops if Ukraine has a manpower deficit on the front lines against Russia in places like Donbass and Luhansk and Kharkiv area and Zaporizhia?
I'll say in completely unrelated news that we did authorize the use of contractors in Ukraine. So
shocking.
Almost like those two things are related. But by the way, whoever caught that 82 millimeter, the Russians use 82, right? 82 or 81, whatever it is,
in flight,
in mid-flight.
Right?
That's actually pretty solid.
It says here, and I believe this, but based on both the Fireball and Don, you can back me up on this. It says here it's a 120, which gives you.
I was thinking it could be a 120. I have a 120 case over there that fits an AK-47. I've heard.
I wouldn't know. Belarusian defense minister alleged that Ukraine is building up its forces on Saturday. A spokesperson for Ukraine's border guard says on Monday that such statements were part of a Russian-supplied information operation that Kiev kept forces near the border with Belarus to prevent any provocations. When asked about the Belarusian buildup claim, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov reminded reporters on Monday that Belarus was a part of a union state with Russia, and that dialogue between Moscow and Minsk, included between their intelligence agency, was close. Our ministries of defense are in constant contact with each other. Of course, this is a cause for concern, not only for Minsk, but also for Moscow, because we are indeed allies and partners. Let's see, Belarus, a close Russian ally that has provided support for what Moscow calls its special military operation in Ukraine, said last week that it was reinforcing its border with Ukraine after a security incident and had deployed a division of multiple launch rocket systems to test their combat readiness. Joe, a country that hasn't had any attrition, as far as I can really tell, in this war of its military forces, and thus 2 years to basically get ready for something to happen, Belarus.
Well, I think Durna made a good point that those troops paid good money to be stationed there. Good point.
Yeah, here we go. $2 super chat, Durna. Those troops paid good money to be stationed there. You got that right. And I do believe there are still Russian forces in there. As you know, after the Wagner incident that occurred last year, Russia moved the remaining Wagner forces into Belarus to begin training. And that kind of knowledge transfer from Wagner into the Belarus Special Forces and other kind of high-end forces. So they definitely got training from people who have seen the elephant in Ukraine recently. Let's see. Earlier this week, Border Services said that some materials from a homemade bomb had been found concealed in the same area. It was unaware of any pro-Ukrainian Russian fighters was present in Ukraine region bordering Belarus. So this is, of course, a Reuters article. So let's look at a source that's a little less, I guess you would call it Ukraine friendly, something that comes, probably more from a Russia point of view. I think this is interesting because, it's good to look at both sides, because the analysis comes out very different. You can look at the exact same data and have a completely different take. And I always, anytime you're looking at an opinion on a warring situation, remember you're in the information environment, so take everything with a grain of salt. Ukraine, this is Andrew Korybo I don't know how to say that name. Koryabko. Let's call that Andrew Koryabko newsletter. Ukraine's potential.
Dude, you're
Belarus.
terrible. Never try to learn Russian because you're terrible at it.
How would you say that? How would you say that?
Korybko.
How would you say it? Huh?
Korybko.
Korybko. Okay.
Literally how it's spelled.
BKO doesn't. That's not like that is not three letters that I would ever put together for a name. So, anyway, all right. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm in East Asia for a reason, my friend.
You know what's funny is that I probably could have figured it out, but then I heard him pronounce it wrong so many times that my brain was like, "Wait, what is it? Wait, what?"
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
No, but then as soon as Joe said it, I was like, "Oh, right, obviously."
Well, the other thing that throws me off is anytime you throw a Y in it instead of an I in a word like this, it automatically, I want to put a hard in on the Y versus take it into the next thing. So if you put an I in there, it would actually make sense in my brain a lot better. The Ukraine's potential Belarusian operation appears predicated on Kiev's calculation that Russia may overreact in some way and prompts a conventional NATO intervention that Zelensky is hoping for, or redirects troops from existing front lines to this new one and thus creates an opening to exploit. Belarusian and Russian media have been flooded with reports of the last few days over newfound tensions along the Ukraine-Belarusian border caused by Ukraine's alleged. I wonder here, Joe, and like I said, we do kind of live in an information environment here. I wonder if there could be some truth to the idea that this is a, Russia-Belarusian information operation that would seek to pull forces away from the front lines towards the border of Belarus. And, it would all be kind of a canard in order to, make it a little easier down on the front lines. Let's see, going further down, all the aforementioned insight would now be summarized for the reader's convenience. In brief, Russia has already won the race of logistics, war of attrition, with NATO being so far ahead that it's now producing 3 times as many shells as the bloc at the quarter of the cost. Russia is therefore poised to achieve a military breakthrough across the front lines, which, I wonder what side this guy's, rooting for. Which is fresh push into Ukraine's Kharkiv region is expected to facilitate by stretching the defenders' forces even further. In that event, however, NATO might conventionally intervene in order to asymmetrically partition Ukraine. I don't disagree with some of his analysis here. I just don't think that NATO is going to directly, I don't think they're going to roll tanks into Belarus or even into Ukraine. Barring some sort of an agreement that basically that would freeze the conflict. Kind of going back to last week, we saw that video by Mersheimer where he talked about freezing the conflict with a agreement and maybe some sort of a peace guarantee force or something like that. I don't know what that would look like. But that's the only way I could see NATO rolling tanks across any of these frontiers. Joe, what do you think?
The troubling part is that I would hate to ever consider that Belarus is potentially telling the truth in any situation whatsoever. But when you look at the history of the Ukraine, provoking Belarus into some sort of an incident so Ukraine could scream, "We need more help, we need more troops, we need NATO to come in," does not ring as false at all, right? So you have to ask yourself, is it possible that in this one particular situation, the good folks of Belarus are literally telling the truth? It's sad. It's not outside the realm of possibility. Now, I highly doubt that if I'm Ukraine and my back's against the ropes and I can't even fund a company, let alone field a company, let alone a battalion, I really doubt that they'd be looking to launch another adventure into Belarus, but they might be looking to provoke them.
Yeah, that's where we're kind of looking at, right? I mean, it's and I can see a not necessarily a long term, but in the short term, I could see how Ukraine could stand to benefit from some sort of border skirmish. I just don't think they would go any further than that with Belarus. I think that's two sides that just don't want to really get involved with each other. You know, I mean, I don't know. There's, there smarter people than me have gotten, wrong the the kind of misdirections that we've seen in the Slavic Civil War. So I'm just gonna kind of hold back on this one. Let's see real quick. This kind of finishes off one of the kind of key points here. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but the reason why this escalation sequence is so dangerous is because Russia might fear that a large-scale NATO invasion force that potentially crosses the Dnieper could be preparing to attack its new regions. The NATO-Russian security dilemma is also serious right now as a result of previously enumerated escalations that such intentions couldn't confidently be ruled out if it happens. Russia might therefore resort to tactical nukes as a last resort of self-defense, ergo its recent drills. And so we got the next article actually that takes us to the next article, which talks about I think it's this one. Anyway, so so for my money, this whole idea that Russia is balancing against NATO action with tactical nuclear weapons, you could say that, hey, listen, it's because of this, potential NATO incursion that, that they're saying, hey, nukes are on the table, right? We're going to do these drills with our operational nuclear forces in Belarus, in the Rostov-on-Don region of Russia. I get that. I mean, do you think this is just political, or do you think there's some real kind of military intent going on?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Anytime that Belarus issues a statement, you could ignore it, because if it was real, it would have came from Vladimir Putin and not Lukashenko, right? So there is that. The other thing that's important to note here is that on Friday, the former Belarus ambassador to Germany somehow tripped and fell and flew out of a window from the top floor of his apartment building and died. I think that there's more going on in the Russia-Belarus drama versus NATO than what we're being told. And I think that this is just them trying to raise Lukashenko's profile by making the same statement that Russia's made repeatedly. And an old adage in nuclear weapon defense is, if someone attacks your nukes on the ground, you have two choices: use them or lose them. And I think that we need to be careful of enabling Ukraine into launching some sort of a strike that throws us over the threshold, right? It is important that we kind of put some restraints on what those rockets can be used for.
I agree. So let's look at this story here. Let me open it up. So here's I had just a little different take. You said that if Belarus issues something, that you can just kind of ignore it because, if it was real, then it would come from Putin. My take is that if Lukashenko is allowed to say anything, it's because Putin has said, hey, Lukashenko, I want you to tell people this. You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely a sock puppet kind of aspect, I think, to him with Putin.
Yeah, that's basically the second side of what Joe said, though.
Right. I know. I'm just trying to differentiate, so we're not in total lockstep, but we're not in disagreement either. Belarus issues nuclear threat amidst rising tensions at Ukraine border. Belarus on Sunday issued a nuclear threat amidst rising. The country will be prepared to use non-strategic nuclear weapons if its sovereignty and independence are threatened, said Pavel Muravyko. He was appointed chief of the general staff on the country's armed forces and first deputy minister in May. We've learned how to handle these weapons. We know how to apply them confidently. We are able to do it. And you can be sure that we will do it if the sovereignty and independence of our country is threatened. Now, here's my question, and Don or Joe, jump in on this. Are these Belarus's weapons, or are they Russia's weapons in Belarus?
Russia's in Belarus.
That's what I
Russia is
thought. Okay.
never going to give Lukashenko control of a nuclear device, ever.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, everywhere but on paper. That is absolutely how. Like,
Yeah.
is there a document somewhere that says these are definitely not Russian missiles? Yes. Is that document worth less than the toilet paper in my bathroom? Yes, it is.
I guarantee you,
Yeah,
it
I
comes
mean-
with a FSB security team, guaranteed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No,
So yeah, Don, go ahead. I mean, you kind of. I want to get your thoughts on this too. What's your kind of take on this whole nuclear saber rattling?
So you can't go to a country, which is Russia, that built a thing in the 90s that said, if a nuke lands on our soil, nukes fly without human intervention. Now, you can argue whether or not it worked, or whether or not it actually did what was advertised all you want, but that was definitely the objective. And then go, oh yeah, but what we're gonna do is drag those nuclear weapons out of you, or let the Ukrainians bomb them, and not expect something horrifically terrible to happen immediately after. The use it or lose it that Joe brought up is precisely what it is. I mean, pause for a moment and just examine the idea of the Mexicans rolling into the southern U.S. and taking a nuke. What do you think comes next? It's not going to be good.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's go figure. It's the Slavic Civil War. I don't expect anything to be good.
Yeah, well, there's that too.
All right. Anyway, let's and just to kind of get in on the action here. We've seen our Baltic dwarves and NATO has kind of got in on the action. Poland and the Baltic states just requested EU funding to finance what they now call the EU defense line, which is really just rebranding of January's Baltic defense line that was renamed the Baltic Shield before its later iteration. During the project section conceptual phase, it paired with Poland and set the basis for a joint shield initiative. To summarize, the U.S. envisions that Germany employing the military Schengen to accelerate the construction of Fortress Europe, which would then enable Germany to contain Russia at the U.S. behest, while U.S. pivots back to Asia to more muscularly contain China. So the idea, I guess, is that I don't know if it makes me feel like they don't feel super confident that Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania are going to be able to hold their ground.
Here's the truth of the matter. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have been talking a lot of smack. They've been running their mouths about war with Russia and what everyone else should do. Then all of a sudden they looked around and they're like, hey, we kind of live in a bad neighborhood and we might not have should have been talking all that trash to everybody. Can someone come help us? This is countries that thought they had a call option on NATO and all of a sudden realized that maybe that's not as big a deal as they think it is. So they want to kind of hedge a bet against NATO and go for EU, right? And this is actually something that it's a little bit nefarious, but Ursula von der Leyen has been advocating for ever since she was the defense minister of Germany. And that is a Franco-Germanic army responsible for all of Europe. Sort of a France and Germany united defending Europe. Boy, that sounds so familiar to me for some reason, and I'm not sure why. But she's been talking about this since that long ago, and this actually plays into that. So,
yeah, that's a good point. Well, the other thing here is in this deal that really only Poland is the only country that has enough ass really to be able to put up a kind of a good day one defense, right? But to that end, so Poland has a request for German police assistance to help guard the bloc's border with Belarus. Also facilitates the likelihood of Berlin playing a leading role in the EU defense line's construction. In that event, a modern-day Maginot Line would be built along the EU-NATO-Russian border.
Do they remember how effective that line was?
Well, and I'm just thinking, does that mean that Belarus and Russia just go into Ukraine and then into Poland from the south? I mean, is that how that works?
Steve mentioned a really good point there. Putting up any barrier against the army that now has the most experience in the world at breaching obstacles, right? I mean,
right.
It's not really that great of an idea.
Right. Is this possible? Sure, but I hope you're planning on bankrupting your country for that barrier.
That's a really nice speed bump you have there. Good job.
Right. I don't know who comes up with that kind of plan. Man, the Maginot Line, like, my guy, what are you doing? Putting it on every square inch of the country? It's not really a line at that point. It's the Maginot, your country.
Yes, the Maginot country. That's right. But that's what Finland is, isn't it? Didn't they kind of have the whole Maginot country concept?
Well, what's funny about that is that if you study small unit tactics enough, you'll also learn that several places the Germans went directly up against that line and defeated it handily with pushing engineers to the front and blowing lines in it. So
yeah,
blowing holes in it. So it still wasn't what it was made out to be.
Let's see. Let's kind of go down further into this article. Reinforcing the false
Airborne
perception
troops rendered it essentially useless. So
yeah, the ability to strike deep with troops, whether it's air assault or airborne, would pose significant dilemmas for static positions like that.
Thankfully, the Russians have no troops that are good at this.
Let's see. Reinforcing the false perception of the so-called Russia threat that's designed to rally the bloc's people around. So the idea, and there's something to be said for this, right? Like, it's not so much that this is practical; it just helps rally the people behind an enemy, right? In order to make bread and circus for the domestic political parties. Let's see. Yeah, and no normalization between these two sides would ever be possible once these fortifications are built, but that's precisely what the U.S. wants in order to indefinitely divide and rule them. Yeah, I mean, there's something to that. The whole Berlin Wall kind of creates a physical barrier between two peoples. I think that's true. All right, guys, we are at 2 hours, 17 minutes, so a little over, but I'm ready to call it. Joe, final thoughts for today, looking into the midweek?
No. I would watch for more protesting in France as the left doesn't get what they want. But more importantly, I want everyone to watch it and realize that that's what's in store here if the left does not get everything they want. The times of folks losing an election and going, shucks, we'll get them next time, are behind you, right? You saw a small portion of that on the J20 protests in when Donald Trump took office in 2016 or 2017. You're going to see it on a grand scale should he win in the fall. That's presuming, of course, he makes it to the election and we as a nation make it to the election. But conflict is all that's ahead of you, so you should start preparing now.
There's some interesting stuff that I'm seeing on Twitter. Like that Poso tweet that you shared. Watcher, if you want to,
I was going to say the Poso tweet that I shared. That's not likely.
I'm saying this is the one that Watcher shared the link to. Yeah, in the chat. I thought that was just kind of interesting. Just the kind of audacity that you're starting to see. That if God forbid a Trump supporter were to write something like this, they would absolutely be pilloried. But yet, if you're a God-fearing American Biden supporter, hey, it's all good. It's all in good fun. Hey, it was just a joke, guys. Don't get your panties in a wad, right? I mean, that's the defense, right? So if Joe Biden declared today that November's election is canceled and ordered the military to keep him in power, that'd be an official act. For sure, why not? It'd also be an illegal order, but hey. Trump's Supreme Court, yeah. You know, I wonder if you're going to have some calls, you kind of during the lame duck to try to extend the Supreme Court, you know, because that's theoretically something that could be done.
When they say stuff like this, then you need to realize exactly what I just said, right?
Yeah.
Conflict is around the corner no matter what. These people will tell you that the minute you give them the opportunity.
Joe, it's just a joke. Come on, Joe.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just a joke.
These people are not joking.
No, they're not. They're not. Don?
I don't know what else to say that hasn't been said there. I mean, look, when the party in power that's prosecuting its political opponents loses once and then starts discussing that how it's time to kill their political opposition, I don't know, take notice.
Yeah. Watcher?
Yeah, the "You Are Here" sticker is not in a very comfortable spot, folks. It's kind of obvious from what we do from the show on a daily basis. We really appreciate each and every one of you for being out there in the audience and for joining us this morning. Couldn't do the show without you.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. And chat, you guys were awesome again today. I want to just remind everybody that if you have the flexibility to definitely consider coming out and joining us on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of August for our get together in Montana in conjunction with Shield Arms. Website to follow soon. As soon as I know about it, you will know about it. And if you haven't done it already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Make sure you're pushing out the link on your socials so that you're letting people know this is, good info that, stories and an insight and analysis that you're not getting other places. So hopefully we're bringing value to you guys. Once again, thanks to the council, thanks to the chat, and as always, stay safe.